Hello, welcome back to my haunted library. It's Regina. As part of my Gothic sensibility playlist, I decided to read a bunch of Gothic novels, starting with some of the early classic ones. So I read The Monk by M.G. Lewis. Matthew, I forget what the G is for, Lewis. It came out in 1796. Now, I was familiar with The Monk because I had mentioned in my other video that I was in a production of The Monk as an actor back in 1990 when I was just a wee lass, and I played as part of an ensemble a couple different roles. But one of the characters I played was the Bleeding Nun, which is a great character in the book. Wow, this book did not disappoint. It is so crazy. The story itself is just so nuts where this goes. Talk about problematic. I mean, we've got incest, rape, uh, matricide. I mean, it's crazy. So, sorry for the spoilers. So, the basic story is about this priest named Ambrosio, who is at the height of his power. He's renowned in Madrid. Everyone loves him. He's beautiful. He's good. He's all these qualities. And so, he's really been kind of set up for a great fall, which that's the whole theme of this book is like the fall of man, I guess. Women fall too, but it's more about this one guy. So he's giving mass at church, and the Sisters of St. Clair convent come in to do their confession, and one of the young novices drops a letter and from her habit, and he picks it up and reads it, and it is a letter from her lover and Raymond. So she begs him, please don't turn me in, and he ends up doing the right thing and turning her in. And she curses him for his lack of understanding and forgiveness. And this kind of sets in motion his own fall. One of the monks in the monastery is named Rosario, and he's very obedient. You know, he's got like the cowl up. He's very obedient to Ambrosio. He will do whatever he wants. And then one night he confesses that he's not really Rosario. He's Matilda, a beautiful young woman who was actually the model for the Virgin Mary statue that Ambrosio is kind of like obsessed with. It gets into a lot of these sexual temptations, and sometimes it's such an extreme depiction of all of this. It's quite comical. I mean, I was laughing through a lot of it. But Matilda reveals herself to be a woman who's in love with Ambrosio, and he does give in to temptation eventually, and they have sex, and it's really interesting because as soon as he sates his lust, he wants more, and it starts into motion this thing where he becomes obsessed with this young virgin, Antonia, and he must have her. And Matilda, who is his like spurned lover, is actually a necromancer. She's communing with Satan in the subterranean vaults, and so she, with a little black magic, helps to set this tryst up between Ambrosio and this young virgin, where he completely destroys her. And then there's a whole twist about that relationship that I'm not going to give away. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. It's crazy. In the other part of the story, we've got Ambrosio's story, and then the other main story. There's lots of different stories going on, but the other main story is about Agnes, who gets pregnant by Raymond, and Raymond wants to marry her. He wants to do the right thing, but she's trapped in the nunnery with the Sisters of St. Clair, and when they find out that she is pregnant, they put her into this dungeon and torture her and do all kinds of horrible things to her. And one of the memorable scenes is about the Bleeding Nun, which was the role that I played when I was in the play back in 1990 in the Lower East Side. And it was a great cast. It had some people that have gone on to some really good careers, like Toby Huss, who's a film actor, very successful, and Liz Tuccilla, who is also a writer and a director. She did like a lot of writing for Sex and the City. She's very successful. And I also got to work with one of my best friends who is still acting in movies and on stage. So it was really a great experience. I played the role of the Bleeding Nun. Now, the Bleeding Nun is this ghost of this nun who out of lust, did something really terrible, and she is murdered by her lover. So she doesn't give him away for his debaucheries, and she comes back every fortnight or so, and she is covered in blood and carries a lantern and a dagger and kind of comes through this castle. And when I played the role, I remember getting like my hands covered with blood every night, and kind of did it like that part for me. I didn't have any lines. It was like a pantomime. It was actually really cool. So Agnes dresses up like the bleeding nun, and every night when the bleeding nun shows up, the porter opens the door so she can go out. So Agnes is going to dress like the bleeding nun, and so she can run off with Raymond. Well, because he doesn't believe in ghosts, he sees the bleeding nun, thinks it's Agnes, and throws her in the carriage, but he actually has the real bleeding nun, and she makes the horses go crazy, the carriage crashes, Raymond is all, broken bones, and Agnes is nowhere to be found, and then the bleeding nun starts to visit him with these nocturnal visits every night, and to like steal his male essence, which was when I did the role, that we kind of pantomimed all that, which is really pretty crazy. So I have a little bit of a soft spot for the bleeding nun, but this book is just like jam-packed with all kinds of insanity like that. And there were some really funny things, like when Raymond kidnaps the Mother Superior and binds and gags her and like throws her over his horse and runs off with her and throws her in the closet. There's a lot of funny stuff with nuns and priests. If you're Catholic like me, I found some definite gallows humor in all of it. But it does have a serious side, and it does have some very pithy things to express about human nature, the nature of man, the nature of woman, the differences between the sexes. I thought here were very, very pronounced, and I've found to be a lot of it to be very true in a lot of ways, and in ways that perhaps makes you a little uncomfortable, but still you're like, yeah, that's kind of the way it is. And I'm not going to give away exactly what happens. It does have a twist ending, and by the time you get to it, you're just like, oh my God, can this go any crazier? So it is kind of a long book, but I zipped through it pretty fast. It's the writing's very lyrical, and I enjoyed that. Apparently, the author M.G. Lewis wrote it when he was very young, not quite 20. The book caused an incredible sensation, and it was, declared to be absolute filth, which is why everyone, of course, wanted to go out and read it. So if you're into like more of like a classic type of literature, and you want to know more about Gothic literature, I highly recommend The Monk. I would love to see this made into a film, and maybe it was, and I just don't know about it. So that was The Monk, and I really enjoyed it. I think if you have a stomach for something that's truly twisted and a little gallows humor from the Catholic Church, and if you're not offended by that, I think that you would really enjoy The Monk. So check it out, and I will see you next time in my haunted library. Bye.